Hey everyone, nice to see you again. Alright, well, today we're going to do two things. First, I'm going to show you some samples of some of the work that the kids in your group and the kids in the other groups have been doing, drawing the plants growing in the different life zones. So you can see some of the cool ideas they used and maybe take some of those ideas and use them in your own way in your next drawing. And also, we're going to do a different kind of drawing today, where instead of drawing your own new drawing, you're going to take a drawing that someone else has done, and you're going to get to draw over it. And so it'll really be a team drawing instead of just a one-person drawing. And don't worry, everyone, your original drawings aren't getting messed up by this. I made copies of them. Everything's okay. But first, let's take a look at some of the art you guys have done. Here's a drawing of oak leaves done by Leslie. That green background goes really nicely with the green leaves. And you can see 4 different colors of green she has on those leaves. The background for the whole leaf, 2 greens around the edge of the leaf, and a very pale yellow green on the veins of the leaves. It looks great. Now we have a drawing of juniper berries from Aaliyah. She's got several blues on the berries, several greens on the needles, and several browns on the branches and the trunk. It looks nice. Now here are some nice leaves by Amy. The dark black veins in the leaves look really good against the green, and they show up really well even with the different greens she's drawn over them. She's put some lines in the background too, green lines over a green background, which is a nice detail. Notice how she outlined the branch too with a dark line. Those dark outlines help the leaves and the branches really pop off the drawing and look strong. Here we have a pine cone on a branch drawn by Araceli. That dark black background looks pretty cool. The really thin lines she used for the needles look good too. Her pine cone is really abstract, all those swirly lines, but if you look close, you can see she has 3 different browns in there, which looks great. You've seen this one before, Clara's cool abstract pine cone. It's a great looking design, and she also has a lot going on with the colors. 2 greens on the needles, 3 or 4 browns and brownish red in the middle, and that nice background of dark blue blending into light blue. Here's another pine cone with needles, this time drawn by Cruz. I really like how the needles are just all over, almost like they're the background, with that pine cone almost in the middle. This cool pine branch was drawn by Daniel. It's full of blue. Blue background, blue branches, blue outline behind the branches and needles. That's neat. There's just that touch of red in the background where the dark blue blends into the red if you look closely. If you look even closer, you can see there's one more really thin blue line inside each needle. A really nice detail. Here's a great drawing by Donnie. It's all just one size of line with no color, but the detail looks fantastic. What really makes this work is how many times he's drawn over his own lines. The berries are each outlined 5 or 6 lines, and most of the needles have that many lines too. So even though he's drawing with a really thin line, they end up looking thick and strong. Here's another abstract pine cone, this time by Elizabeth. You can see she's made the inside of the pine cone with a repeated shape instead of drawing it with lines. That's a nice abstract touch. The bright green needles look good against the dark green background too. This cool abstract branch was drawn by Emma. It's all shapes with no drawing lines at all. But notice how the leaves in the middle are not the same shade of green. That's a really nice touch. Here's a nice, strong, simple grandma grass done by Gunnar. He used the same color of brown for the seed head, but because he drew some of the lines back on themselves, he ended up with 2 colors of brown. The same thing happens where the 2 green lines for the stem meet. 2 of the same greens overlapping to make a second shade of green. Now we have a whole field of grass drawn by Isis. She used the marker where the color's on the outside instead of the line, and that looks great on a white background. The places where the halo on one line overlaps another line look great too. Here's a most excellent yucca drawn by Izzy. That bright yellow on top looks great against the dark blue background. All those tight, swirly, really tiny lines look good with the yellow behind them. Here we have another case where using a lot of really tiny lines can look big. This cool piece by Jiraiya is loaded with color. Those 3 greens and brown used in the outline look good side by side, and all the little dots everywhere add a nice texture. Here we are back at the juniper berries, this time drawn by Caden. Those berries are all shapes, not lines. A big blue circle with little blue circles in different colors on top. He's got at least 3 different greens on those needles and 3 or more browns in the branch. This cool, simple drawing is the trunk of a corkbark fir, drawn by Catalina. She's done a bunch of different colors in the bark on the trunk to make a really nice texture. And here are more trunks, this time aspen trunks drawn by Lola. It's a great, clever composition to just draw trunks, and anyone who knows and loves aspen trees will recognize them from this image. It's a very simple drawing, but the composition is so clever it really works great. And now some grass, drawn by Lila. They look like they're bending in the wind. Here again, we see zillions of tiny lines all teaming up to make big, thick, strong-looking stalks of grass. And of course, she's used more than one green in all those lines to make them even better. Now a nice abstract pine cone and pine needles drawn by Mia. If you look close, you can see that those lines are not all the same width. Some are skinnier than others. A nice touch. Back to the juniper berries, this time with Miguel. This one is all about the detail. He really filled up the page with needles and berries, and that bold brown branch winding through behind it all looks great. Here's a nice pair of leaves drawn by Nicholas. We've seen a few pieces now where the background color is the same as the foreground color, green over green here, or blue over blue. But if they are different enough, it looks really nice. Those really thin white lines look good too. A nice detail. Here's another great yucca, drawn by Persephone. Again, while a tiny thin line all alone looks kind of weak, when you draw a whole bunch of tiny thin lines together, they look great. Those bright white blossoms really show up well, and the green stalks look great in front of the red background. Here's another example of a really dark background with a really bright foreground, this time drawn by Remy. He also used that pen where the color's on the halo of the line instead of in the middle, which looks really good on a really dark background. He used a lot of lines too, which we know looks good. And finally, we have this cool abstract juniper by Shayla. It looks good having those really precise lines for the needles, the perfect circles for the berries, with the rougher line for the branch. It's a nice contrast. Alright, well what we're going to do now is a new kind of drawing, where instead of starting with just a blank white screen, you're going to pick one of those images you just saw, and you're going to draw right over it to make a new team drawing. For example, I took this drawing of Gunner's, his nice grandma grass drawing, and I drew more detail on top of it, like this, using the tricks we've been talking about. So I just took his drawing and added more to it. Or for another example, I took this drawing, Donnie's great drawing, and I added color to it, using more than one shade, like we know, so it looked good. So now you're going to get to do the same. Let me go to my computer and show you how to get there.
Alright guys, so here is what you are going to do this time to get into the drawing, the activity that you're going to do. When you open up your Seesaw, you're going to go over here onto the right side where you see it says Journal, Activities, Notifications, and Progress. Click on Activities, and when you click on Activities, you will see all those drawings that all the kids made. There's Leslie's drawing, Aaliyah's drawing, Amy's drawing, Arcella's drawing, Clara's drawing, and so on, all the way down. They've all been assigned to you as something you can respond to. So what you do is you pick your one. Let's say you want to do Emma's drawing and draw on top of Emma's drawing. Then you go over here and you click Add Response. And after Add Response, it'll just be you. I have to pick a student, but it'll automatically be you. And then here you are. You can just start drawing right on top of it. You won't be able to erase anything that Emma did. You won't be able to put a new background on it, but you will be able to draw on top of what she did. And then when you're done, you just go right up here to the check mark and turn it in just like you always do. So there you go. Enjoy. I look forward to seeing your work.